Welcome back, Truth Seeker. March 22nd, 2019. Want to talk about some of the big headlines today. Why the Robert Mueller report is finished. Going to talk about what that has to do with Yale Skull and Bones. What's so interesting about Jimmy Carter becoming the oldest living former U.S. president 3 months and 22 days after the death of George Herbert Walker Bush, and this feat coming on 322. Of course, HW was a member of Yale Skull and Bones, which identifies by 322. The Dow had a very bad day today. Talk about that. Another big 47 in the news. New York Times coming out and saying 47 killed in a chemical plant explosion in China. And R. Kelly being shamed by the numbers. Why March 22nd? So we'll cover all these, plus Pompeo coming out and saying God could have been raised by Trump to protect Israel. Don't forget, Donald Trump is on a shekel right now in Israel. His face, King Cyrus's face, and on the other side, the third temple. And of course, that money for that shekel being raised to build the third temple, which is supposed to bring in the Jewish Messiah. And I'll remind, in light of this headline coming on March 22nd, 223, the synagogue of Satan equals 223, which is who Donald Trump serves. We also have a story about a suicide of a Stoneman Douglas student today in the news, and talk about what's so interesting about that story. But let's start right here with the Robert Mueller report finishing today. Couldn't be any more perfect. So Robert Mueller, his birthday's August 7th, which is perfect because Russia equals 87. You know, this is the Russia investigation. Russia 87, the man with the 87 birthday. From his birthday to today is 227 days. And what is 227? That's the 49th prime number. Remember, the Scottish Rite headquarters in Washington, D.C. has etched on the building ancient accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. 227, the 49th prime number. Scottish is 49, Washington's 49. Donald J. Trump is another 49. His author name on his books. And look at this, from the day that Trump took office to the day this investigation ends, exactly 113 weeks on the nose. The other big Scottish number. So can there be any doubt this is a Scottish Rite Freemason ritual? Keep in mind, it's March 22nd, 322, like Yale Skull and Bones. The Scottish Rite headquarters in D.C. has giant portraits up of George W. and George H.W. Bush. Supposedly, neither of them are a member of the Scottish Rite, but they're both members of the Masonic Order Skull and Bones. And just with regards to the Scottish Rite, don't forget this either. Robert Mueller's 187, Investigations 187, Washington, D.C.'s 187, George Washington's 187. When you run the alphabetic order forwards, ancient accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry is also 187. And this investigation was of Donald Trump and his administration. Remember, Trump had his GOP convention begin July 18th, 18/7, exactly 187 days from Inauguration Day. And we pointed that out, well before the date came around. That could be a clue that he was destined for the throne in Washington, D.C., which he was. There were several clues along the way. As another reminder, this investigation began May 17th. That's the 137th day of the year. Washington, D.C. is also 137. So is government. So is White House. So is mind control, which is what government is. Authorities, 137. The Masonic text, Morals and Dogma, equals 137. There's a statute of Morals and Dogma in Washington, D.C. 137, the 33rd prime. Masonry, secrecy, federal order, they're all 33. So is the name Robert Mueller. Don't forget that in Hebrew, Kabbalah sums to 137, and that's where this practice comes of coding numbers into words. And in Morals and Dogma, which equals 137, it praises Kabbalah. It says Masonry owes all thanks to Kabbalah. Notice May 17th also leaves 228 days left in the year. If you count the full span of days from Mueller's birthday to today, it's also his 228th day of his age. United States of America with the alphabetic orders 228. The latest distraction for the United States of America has come to a conclusion. Sure, this isn't the last we'll hear about it, but again, another perfect ritual, all by the numbers that points in one direction, to the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. For some added comedy, from Donald Trump's birthday to today is 281 days. And what is it about 281 and 322? If you've been following my work, you might already know. Let me just scroll down here a second. You remember where the Skull and Bones member just died? George Herbert Walker Bush. He died in Houston, the 281 area code. His father, Prescott Bush, died on October 8th, the 281st day of the year. And the co-founder of Skull and Bones, William Huntington Russell, died on his 281st day of his age. And what is 281? It's the 60th prime number. What equals 60? Order equals 60. So does skull. The order of Skull and Bones, which identifies by the number 322. The number 322. And this post that I have right here, it's about the movie Enemy of the State, which came out just before 9/11. It's about everything that happened on September 11th, about an agenda to keep surveillance over the United States of America. This film, Enemy of the State, released on November 18th, the 322nd day of the year, leaving 43 days remaining. Yale equals 43. Yale's mascot is the Bulldogs. Bulldogs equals 43. In this film, the guy who's the enemy, the head of the NSA, his birthday is September 11th. Go figure, right? This whole movie was predicted programming for September 11th. His name is Thomas Brian Reynolds, a name that equals 281. Again, 281, the 60th prime, skull and order equals 60. In this film, at 1 hour and 49 minutes into the film, Will Smith looks at his watch and there's 322 right on the watch at 1 hour and 49. Skull and Bones, 149. Not a coincidence. So we've been talking about this 281 Skull and Bones pattern a lot since the death of George H.W. Bush. Here's one more instance of it. On 322, 281 days after Puppet Trump's birthday, we get this. It's not hard to see what's going on here. Perfect ritual, meaning Donald Trump was born for the throne, as we talked about before he even took office. And then here's Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter today becomes the oldest living former U.S. president and surpassing George H.W. Bush by 1 day. And just look at it. From the day Bush died to today, March 22nd, 322 is 3 months and 22 days later. It just goes to show we don't live in a land of democracy or, legitimate elections. The way all of this lines up is by perfect ritual. And what it also should clue people into, because the moron will come along and they'll go, well, how can you guarantee a guy's going to live to be a certain age? Well, for the moron, it just goes to show there's things that exist in this world to maintain your health, to keep you in good health, to know how to live long. That knowledge isn't given to us, the peons. They want us to be sick and retarded. Sick and retarded people are easy to manipulate, rule over, profit from. I mean, almost everybody in this country, when they go to their dying grave, they rack up huge medical bills that make doctors rich, that make insurance companies rich. The people of this nation are nothing but cogs in a machine. Little gears in a giant machine. Plus, there's ancient knowledge for how to stay healthy, how to eat right. That's all thrown out the window, and they give you the food pyramid. And milk, it does the body good advertisements. And beef, it's what's for dinner. So that's how they do it. As for the market tanking today, it's, we always talk about the market and masonry and the Masonic rituals. Let me just pull up the Gematria calculator just in case you forget this. Freemason economics. Look at the perfect overlap in all four ciphers. We just talked about the death of Obama's economic advisor this past week. He died 181 days, I believe, after Obama's birthday, which is the 42nd prime. Of course, Barack Obama also equals 181. But Freemasonry is the show. Freemasonry is the show. You know, that's why Masonic symbolism's all over dollar bills. Today is March 22nd, 223. Masonic equals 223 in Jewish Gematria. The cipher based on the Latin order of the alphabet. And with regards to the 42, look at the Dow. You know, Dow's 42. So it's not hard to see. And I don't know when they're going to pull the plug, but they will pull the plug by the numbers. It's a house of cards, remember. Donald Trump elected as the 45th president-elect on the anniversary of the fall of the wall, the Berlin Wall. Don't forget Berlin Wall equals 45. And don't forget Donald Trump, you know, was running during the time of the show House of Cards, where his name and President Underwood from the show have all the perfect overlap, plus all the rituals they've done with Kevin Spacey and Donald Trump in the time he's been in office. So just one more reminder, who's holding all the strings? Your government, your economy, your news media. New York Times sure to come out with 47 killed. This technically happened March 21st, which was a fitting day. It was a chemical plant explosion, chemical 36. The chemical plant exploded on a date with 36 numerology. So highly doubt that was an accident. And then what about R. Kelly today? R. Kelly. Why did they do this to R. Kelly today? Again, everything about R. Kelly's been a ritual in numbers. Keep in mind that March 22nd is the 81st day of the year. Masonry's all about rituals. 81 ritual, 81st day of the year. But for R. Kelly, this ritual, look at his birthday too, January 8th, 8/1, here on the 81st day of the year. Today's his 74th day of his age. And what do we know? Masonic 74, Masonic 223. Who controls the entertainment industry? Masonry. And just for your Gematria vocabulary, don't forget that judge and jury are 47 and 74. Arraigned, same Gematria as court. So it's not hard to see why R. Kelly, the big show going on today. And again, he was given those charges on the 53rd day of the year, February 22nd. Robert Kelly, his name 53. That was the same day Robert Kraft got busted. Robert Kraft busted on the 53rd day of the year. And speaking of Robert Kraft, there was an update in his story, and I was going to make a video about it, but I got distracted and forgot. From the day that, have you seen the latest news about Robert Kraft? So the day this happened, yesterday, March 20, or he filed this motion March 20th, which is the 79th day of the year. And remember, this came right after the Patriots won Super Bowl 53, and Patriots is 53, just like Los Angeles, and 53 is the 16th prime, why there were 16 points in the game. But anyway, from the Super Bowl to the day that he filed to, stop this thing going on against him for supposedly soliciting sex at the spa, it was 45 days later. Spa's 45, New England's 45, in both reduction ciphers. He did this on the 79th day of the year. Kraft 79, just like champion. Not hard to see what's going on. It's just all another distraction, a ritual. It's all about keeping the mind's eye of the masses occupied and forgetting they're slaves to a terrorist state, which is the United States of America, which is a lot of the nations of the world. Then there's this headline today. Again, Pompeo agrees it's possible God raised Trump to protect Israel from Iranian aggression. And what's so sad is you got so many sheep in this world believing that Donald Trump was sent here by God. The pussy grabber who wants to fuck his own daughter, sent here by God. You really got to wonder about these people, don't you? The Christian man whose favorite verse is an eye for an eye and who wants to fuck his daughter. Sent here by God. But anyway, this headline on March 22nd, 322. Don't forget Abrahamic religions 322. That's Judaism, Christianity, Islam. And Donald Trump's part of the first tribe. Also, don't forget ancient mystery religions 322. That's Kabbalah, that's Hermeticism, that's alchemy, that's Kundalini. It's all the stuff that the Masonic and occult societies are into. And I got to look into this massive storm that just hit Africa. I let that story slip through. I dropped the ball on that one. I will do some work on that. I haven't looked yet, but I saw that tragedy of biblical proportions. And again, this headline's from today, March 22nd, 322. So you can understand why they're going with the biblical headline. 322, Genesis 322, which pays tribute to Kabbalah. I'm sure there's somebody here who's never seen me do this before. Hold on, let me finish this and then I'll show you about Genesis 322. A lot of you already know it. People who've never seen it before, it amazes them every time. But here, we'll close out with that since it's March 22nd. Okay, and then there's this story. Recent Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School graduate commits suicide. And what stands out to me right away is that her name is Sydney. Because think about this. Last Friday, we had the mass shooting at the synagogue. And they said the shooter was from Australia, Sydney. And they said that the Stoneman Douglas survivors just went over to New Zealand to spread their protest of guns. They want the New World Order to claim everybody's guns. Those brave Stoneman Douglas children, they just want it so nobody could ever fight back from tyranny. And I mean, really, if you think about it, it's like, okay, New Zealand's a place where it's known that most people, they don't have guns. There's not a lot of guns around. The police don't have guns. So what did you just got there? You get there, you got a story of a guy strolling down the street, taking his sweet time, walking back and forth, carefully selecting his gun, just shooting people as if he knew there was no threat out there. And isn't that really what the danger of having a disarmed society? That if you have a psychopath out there with a gun, he knows that he can just, he can murder everybody. He can take a sweet time. The police aren't going to respond. The people aren't going to be able to defend themselves. And then you got people who are just ready to hand over their weapons. Talk about really dumb, mind-controlled people. But anyway, this story comes today, March 22nd. Today has the 44 numerology. As we know, shooting's 44. It's the number coded up and down every shooting. Keep in mind, the shooting of the mosques in New Zealand, the second mosque that was shot up, the address was 223. We covered that. The first address was 101, which goes with Ides of March, the day of the shooting, plus a whole lot of other things. But the second mosque was 223. So Sydney Aiello, 19. Here we are in 2019. And the other thing it makes me think of is how we talked about it last year, the riddle with the Super Bowl and the shooting. Remember the Stoneman Douglas, their school's the Eagles. Their mascot is 100% identical to the Philadelphia Eagles, Philadelphia 223. In the Bible, the letter written to the Church of Philadelphia about the synagogue of Satan, which also equals 223. And there was a girl, I'm trying to remember her name now. It was Carly something. She was one of the survivors, supposedly the Stoneman Douglas shooting. She had red hair. She was one of the first people to go on TV. Let me see if I can get it real quick. Stoneman Douglas survivor Carly. I remember her first name was Carly. Carly Novell, that's her. She went on TV and she told the story about how she hid in a closet, just like her grandfather right here, who supposedly survived a mass shooting in Philadelphia where he hid in a closet. And I said, look at that. The first girl on TV is talking about Philadelphia right after the Eagles won the Super Bowl. And remember, the Eagles won the Super Bowl in Minnesota, and Stoneman Douglas is named after Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, who was from Minnesota. She was from Minneapolis, the 612 area code. And the Stoneman Douglas shooting was 612 days after the Pulse nightclub shooting on June 12th, 6/12. So I think there's something up with that. March 22nd, the Philadelphia thing. Plus 223 is really just the big Masonic number. Oh, yeah. And look at this. Aiello's mother told the news that her daughter suffered from survivor's guilt. So look at the girl's name and look at survivor's guilt. You see it? Perfect overlap. Survivor's guilt, Sydney Aiello. You know, I think this story is just a load of BS. That's what I think. And I think it's just a clear riddle. Again, you just had a shooter last Friday. He was from Australia. The Stoneman Douglas students are over there protesting. Just looks like more straight up BS. And there's one other thing I noticed about her initials. S.A. S is 19. A is 1. Active shooter has that gematria of 191. Also 61 like her name. Her name has the 61 value as well. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas lived to be 108 years old. Stoneman Douglas equals 54. Her name actually has a lot coded into it. But the survivor's guilt thing is the one that really stuck out to me. But active shooter. And remember, Anthony Rizzo was a former student at Stoneman Douglas, and he spoke out about the shooting, and the shooting was exactly 191 days after his birthday. And to me, that just proves further what I've been saying about Manchurian athletes, Manchurian people in the media, all born and bred to be with essentially, you know, in the movie when they show you like the bulletin board with all the red threads tied together. By the way, that red thread comes from Kabbalah, just like this code of letters and numbers. I swear to God, somewhere there's like a mega board and they got our whole next century mapped out. And they have it just that way. Yeah, he'll be perfect for this. Perfect, perfect, perfect. So let's go to that thing I said I was going to do, and then we'll wrap this up. If anybody wants to call in, there is a call-in number. Oh, by the way, if anybody's there wondering where their moderator thing went, I took away all the moderators because I get so many emails and calls and complaints about people getting banned in the chat who weren't doing anything. And they let me know that there are people who read my book and share my book, and they're on the Patreon and they don't know what they got banned for. So I just, you know, I'll let the trolls be trolls, but I don't want any more people getting banned that shouldn't be banned. But if anybody wants to call in, you do know the number, I think, 509-731-0567. Don't call just yet, because I've got to do this thing with 322 first. NIV, Genesis 322. So I want the New International Version, and I want the KJV. I want both. So let's just start with the King James Version. King James, the Freemason. So Genesis 3:22, and the Lord God said, behold, the man is become as one of us to know good and evil. And now lest he put forth his hand and take also of the tree of life and eat and live forever. So that's the King James Version. And then the New International Version is worded a little bit differently, a little less Shakespeare. And the Lord God said, the man is now become like one of us, knowing good and evil. He must not be allowed to reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever. And remember, the tree of life is the model for Kabbalah, the physical model. So if you take the part up to good and evil, and you look at the gematria value using our base ciphers, notice the 322. Notice the 322. This is Genesis 322. So that's the New International Version. So let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that wording. Let's look at the King James Version. And we're going to go up to the same part about knowing good and evil. Notice the 322. It's not the same wording either. Different wording, but the same value. And again, if you apply this code to the English translations of the Bibles, you'll see how so many verses are perfectly coded and worded throughout. And don't forget, it all starts at the beginning. Genesis means in the beginning. In the beginning, 137. That's the 33rd prime number. Genesis equals 33. By the way, Genesis 322 is the 78th verse of Genesis. Genesis with the alphabetic order 78. Genesis, the first of 39 books in the Old Testament. When you multiply the ordinal ciphers times 6, it's 666, the number of the beast. Don't forget that the first published Bibles are Gutenberg Bibles. In the English extended cipher, Gutenberg 666. This is the English cipher that pays tribute to Hebrew Gematria and Greek isopsephy. So, Gutenberg Bible in our most pure cipher, 66 books. Gutenberg 45 and 45, just like Holy Bible, 45 and 45. Anyway. Don't forget Holy Bible, Holy 4 letters, Bible 5. 45 is the 9th triangular number. But yeah, the Bible's full of it. And you start to realize that what's encoded in the Bible, that's where a lot of the meaning of these numbers comes from. So it's just like how mankind, God makes mankind in the 26th verse. God is 26, Adam is 26. God sums to 26 in Hebrew as well, the 4-letter name of God, the Tetragrammaton. The word letters, 26 letters in the English alphabet. If you've never read my book, you really should. The beginning chapter is, why are there 26 letters in the English alphabet? You learn a whole lot about 26. But we'll leave it there for now, Truth Seeker. It's actually been a pretty quiet March 22nd, but I think a lot of these big stories today are setting up for bigger events to come later this year. And the day's not over either. So, I mean, there could still be a big headline tonight. We'll wait and see. They've been real busy on March 22nd in recent years. So maybe they figured they needed to take a March 22nd off this year, or not hit us with the same type of catastrophe headlines they have. So we'll still see. The day's not over. On the West Coast, we got 8 hours a day left. The market, though, that's a sign. Don't forget October 2018. We said why to watch that date, October 10th, 2018. It ended up being the 3rd worst day of market performance history. That was the forecasted date from the Economist magazine in the 80s about the one world currency coming. So obviously the prediction wasn't quite right, but something tells me that, you know, their big catastrophe date, it's not going to be too much further off. So for the market, that is. All throughout history, the people who've controlled this world have done the same thing. Tank economies, make people desperate, start wars. And whether it's this year or next year or 5 years from now, surely that will be the same cycle. That's the point of waking people up. So before the day comes, you know, have a fighting chance of stopping the agenda. Derek says, hope we caught his Prince, or his Kevin Durant decode. It's a Prince riddle. I mentioned the parallels with the Prince thing too. 227 was coded all over the death of Kevin Durant's friend, and Prince, the last Warriors game he ever went to, had 227 combined points. The Warriors won 121 to 106 when Kevin Durant was still on the Oklahoma City Thunder, who the Warriors played that night. Again, 227, the 49th prime number. And Prince died 49 days later. So, Derek, you got to start watching my videos before you do your decodes, because I did see your video and you didn't put any of that in there, and it would have made it a lot more powerful. But because I mean, honestly, I did see your video. Most people are going to watch and be like, "Wait a minute, I'm not getting this. How's this really connect to Prince?" But hey, you would have started with the last basketball game Prince ever went to, and the 227 points, and how he died 49 days later. Then it would have started to make more sense to people. All right, you guys, we'll wrap it up right there. Might be back if something else big happens today. If not, I'll be back sooner than later. Until next time, Truth Seeker.